Welcome to the Safety and Risk Success podcast with me, your host, Christian Harris. Today, we're going to be talking about soft skills in safety and giving you some reasons why soft skills are important, not to replace the technical, functional knowledge and skills that you've got, but as a way to add on to those and leverage those to achieve the most impact. What it is exactly you need to work on in terms of soft skills. So what are the key soft skills that you should be focusing on developing, and then how to develop them. So I share a few pointers and give some advice on things you could do to seek to improve on your soft skills. Then we open up the discussion because this was a safety roundtable session to the panel, and we get some great insights from people where we talk about soft skills in more detail. We give some experiences, some things that people have tried and succeeded at, where people are focusing. And we kind of boil down to the importance of being known, liked, and trusted to be able to influence people to do what it is you need them to do. I hope you enjoy this discussion. As always, hit like, hit comment, give us your thoughts, hit subscribe on the podcasting platform and on YouTube, and look forward to seeing you on the other side for this discussion about mastering soft skills for safety.
Welcome to the Safety and Risk Success podcast with Christian Harris. We believe that proactive safety and risk management powers business performance. Each week we explore this theme, sharing guests, stories, insights, trends, hints and tips. You can find us on all the major podcasting platforms, and video versions are available on YouTube. But for now, let's join the conversation with Christian.
Thank you for joining this safety roundtable session today. We're going to be talking about a topic that I love, which is soft skills in safety, and delving into what are some of the key soft skills that you require, why soft skills are important, and giving you some thoughts on how you can go about developing your soft skills so that you can make a bigger impact in your safety role. So as a starting point, this post popped up a few days ago by David Kant, who you may have come across before. He's been to one or two of these sessions, I think. Let's just check he's not on here today, is he? No, he's not on here right now, so I won't be embarrassing him too much. But David put a post out. I saw this actually first on Twitter, but he put it out on LinkedIn as well. And he said, right, you've just landed a job as the company safety professional, and you know they've got poor performance. You're in at the deepest end and very concerned by some of the employee behaviors you observe, and you don't know anyone. From your experience, one, what would you do? And two, how would you deal with this, with the poor performance? So I would be really interested to get your perspective on this. Perhaps you could let me know in the chat. And while you do that, I'm just going to do a quick intro into myself, in case anybody here doesn't know who I am. And then we'll return to some of your thoughts on this scenario. So fire into the chat, and then we'll come back to your thoughts, and I'll give you my perspective as well. So if you don't know me, my name's Christian Harris. I run a business called Slip Safety Services. I do regular content around the broad themes of safety and risk. So I run this safety roundtable. I host the Safety and Risk Success podcast. And I also do a LinkedIn newsletter called Safety and Risk Success as well. My specialist area, as you can probably gather by the company name, is in the field of slips and falls. And I've worked in some high-profile cases in that environment. The business is doing well. We've won some awards. We've got some great partnerships with the likes of AXA Insurance and some great clients as well. As well as the content that I do a lot of work with organizations like IOSH and IIRSM, and do talks and things like that as well. We've helped several thousand clients in the last few years to reduce the risk of slips and falls in their buildings. And at last count, we're stopping around £10 million a year of claims. So that's a bit about me. So coming back to this scenario, let's just see a couple of bits here in the chat. And the responses we're getting so far are what I was hoping to see, which is active questioning, listening, start talking, break down the barriers as quickly as possible. And that's exactly the response that I had when I saw this post from David talking about you're kind of plunged in at the deep end. There's a poor performance historically, and there are some employee behaviors that you observe and you're not particularly happy with. And my view straight away was, well, we need to start engaging with these people, because we could go in and wade in with a clipboard and a hard hat and a high vis, but that's just going to alienate people. And it's probably not going to get us on the journey that we want to when it comes to achieving the right kind of safety objectives. A good point by Catherine here. I check my bias around poor performers as well. What makes good versus bad. That's a very good point. So just to set the scene, I want to talk about a concept of vital versus functional. So think about, I suppose, at the highest level people, but also think about job roles and functions within a business. And I've not colored these as green and red because it's not like one is good and one is bad. But if you think about things that are functional, so functionality, and actually the last roundtable discussion about AI and ChatGPT was an example of this. Things that are functional are replaceable, they're interchangeable. We can look to do them faster, quicker, at lower cost. Things that are functional are not hugely valued. Compare that to vital, and if you look up vitality, the definition of vitality, there are two definitions of that. One is irreplaceable and one is life force. So think about your role, let's say in the business, whatever it is exactly that you do, and think about the time that you spend doing tasks that are functional tasks versus vital tasks. Think about whether you're positioning yourself as being a functional tool or a vital tool. Are you the irreplaceable life force within the business, or to use grammatically correct sense, an irreplaceable life force within the business? Let's turn that to the topic more specifically and think about technical skills versus soft skills. Now, again, these aren't colored red and green because you don't need technical skills and you do need soft skills. Far from that, you need both. You definitely can't rely on soft skills in safety and feel as if you're going to get by and achieve what you want to achieve, because eventually you'll get found out. Other people in other types of roles perhaps can just rely on soft skills, but definitely in safety, you need to have those technical skills as well. But think about functionality and vitality. The soft skills part is where you can transition to being most vital. Sorry about that, just muted everyone. Yeah, the soft skills bit is where you can become most vital, where you can become that irreplaceable life force. You're unlikely to achieve that position if you focus in solely on technical skills. So if we want to make an impact, if we want to stand out and craft a career and a position for ourselves, then we need to be focusing in my opinion, on some of these soft skills. And really the key thing here is this word of influence. So if you want to achieve your objectives, think about David's scenario. We've got some perceived poor performers. We've got a history of not so good performance in the business based on the data. well, how are we going to change that? We're not going to change that by coming in with a raft of technical skills. We're going to come in and change that through the ability to influence. So to leverage the technical skills that you've got to enable your stakeholders, your colleagues, your customers to benefit from all of those technical skills that you've developed, you've got to be able to develop these soft skills to influence people. Five key soft skills then that we should be looking to develop. Firstly, effective communication skills. We're never going to be able to influence people if we can't communicate with them. And we need to come up with a style of communication. And we talked about this on the roundtable before when we talked about how to make people care about safety, that is crafted, that's relevant, that's attention grabbing, and that has empathy. So we need to work on our communication skills. That's how we can start to influence people. Interpersonal skills. And here I would include something really important, which is you've got to meet people where they're at, and you've got to have radical empathy. So I did a workshop recently with a PLC, and we talked about two scenarios. One was influencing the board, and one was influencing people on the shop floor. And the key point is we've got to really understand where people are and what's important to them through empathy. And that's how we can build the relationships with them. So empathy is a key part of having interpersonal skills. Thirdly, leadership skills. So we've got to bring people with us on this journey. We know where we want to get to. We know these sort of safety outcomes we want to achieve, but we've got to bring people with us on that journey. So we need to develop these leadership skills to achieve that. Problem-solving skills. If we're going on this journey, it's never going to be a straight line. As you may have seen some of these charts before, where you see them quite often on social media, where it's kind of like what people think success looks like, and it's a straight line up, and then what success really looks like, and it's kind of this squiggly line going all sorts of directions, and nothing's ever linear. So problem-solving skills are really important soft skill to have in the safety world. And then attention to detail, because we need to be all over the detail. If you've ever had to deal with any kind of major incident that's led to a claim, then you'll know that being on top of the detail is really important. So that level of attention to detail is definitely a key skill, a key soft skill that I believe we should be seeking to develop. If we can achieve these 5 skills, if we can hone these 5 skills and get really good at them, what's that going to mean? What's that going to mean for us? So it's the ability to influence, it's the ability to change, it's the ability to improve, it's the ability to overcome, the ability to add value, and the ability to progress, both personally, because all of these skills are going to help you to develop yourself in your career and get to where you want to go on a personal level, but also from the perspective of the business and achieving those kind of key business outcomes. So that's some of the why and the what we need to do. What about the how? So I've got some thoughts here that I'm going to share in terms of some things that we could be doing to try and develop our soft skills. And then, as always, we'll open it up, and I'd love to get some feedback from you guys. So I've got a few suggestions here. The first one is to proactively, and I didn't include this word in the slide, but proactively seek out training and development opportunities. So there are loads of resources, there are loads of courses, workshops, conferences, networking groups, professional development groups that you can join, you can get involved with, and that will help you to improve your soft skills. So I would be actively seeking out opportunities to get involved in things like this. So get onto social media, get involved in IOSH, IRSM, or similar things like that. Get involved in networking events, get involved in anything you can do to sort of develop your skills where you're getting some training, formally or informally, will be hugely beneficial. And think outside the box. Don't just think about what's happening in safety, but think about what's happening in your industry, or think about other events that are happening that might not even be in your industry or in safety, but that can help you to develop some of the skills that we've talked about today. Secondly is active listening. So this is where that kind of point about empathy comes in. So paying really close attention to what others are saying and really understanding and getting what they're talking about, and really appreciating their perspective is really, really powerful. So something you can do there, for example, is when you come along and join one of these roundtable sessions every couple of weeks, practice your active listening. So when other people are getting involved in sharing their thoughts, really carefully listen to what they're having to say, and then follow up with those people. You know, we're here to build a community. We're here to help one another. Send them a message on LinkedIn and say, you know, this was a really interesting point about X, Y, and Z. I'd love to discuss this further. So you're working on that skill in a setting that you're going to get some other benefit from it as well. So that's one way of trying to improve your active listening. Next is leadership opportunities. So leadership is something that some people just kind of have it, and other people have to work quite hard to achieve it. But I think you need to force yourself to try to get yourself in a position to lead. So whether that's volunteering for something, which could be at work or it could be at home, you know, it could be coaching your kids' football team or something like that. But doing something where you're having to lead and take on that responsibility is going to be a really great way of developing the broad spectrum of soft skills that will be beneficial to you in your safety endeavors. So think about what you could volunteer for, but if you can't find anything, create something, create a project, create a campaign, run an event, you know, be proactive, put yourself out there, get something up and running. Find something you're passionate about. You know, if there's an area of safety that you're really passionate about, well, you know, set up a webinar about it. Invite people along. You know, push the boundaries, lead, and you'll find that will really help you to develop your soft skills. Problem solving we mentioned. So try and practice problem solving. Easier said than done, because you know we spend our time trying to avoid problems in many ways. But I suppose a way of turning that on its head is, rather than practicing problem solving, it's to think about a solutions mindset. So be looking for opportunities to seek out solutions. So team activities are a good thing to do here, or even if you're in a work setting, you can group some of these things together. You know, sit down with a colleague in a different function of the business and get to understand what are their stresses, what are their problems, what are their challenges, what are the blockers to them achieving what they need to achieve, and think about how you can bring a solutions mindset to that by enabling them and working with them and doing something that you are able to influence to make their life easier. So that's a good way of being proactive around looking for problem solving / solutions focus. Fifth is attention to detail. So I suspect that most of us in safety have got pretty good attention to detail anyway. My wife would sometimes disagree when it comes to things that happen at home. And one of the things I would suggest here is to look for opportunities at home to work on your attention to detail as well. But think about mindfulness and focus. Strive to be as organized as you can and really thorough. And the more on top of that you become, the more space there is to think, to breathe, to improve these other skills as well. Next is building communication skills. So think about public speaking. There's a group called Toastmasters, which I know lots of my friends have done before. I've actually, weirdly always been pretty confident with public speaking. So I've never done anything like that. But what I found with public speaking is that the more you do it, the better you become. It's funny how the more you practice, the luckier you get. As was it Gary Player that said that, the golfer, or maybe it was Jack Nicklaus, I can't remember now. Get involved in the safety roundtable or similar things. Come along and be proactive. Put your hand up. When I open this up to people to give me thoughts and to join in the discussion, get your hand up and join in. This is a safe space to where you're surrounded by people who are fellow safety and risk professionals who are all trying to help each other and develop to do that. Put yourself out there on social media. Get FaceTime to different colleagues and to the board. Try and get in front of the board and pitch them, in inverted commas, on safety. That's a great way of building your communication skills. Think about all the different sorts of people that you need to communicate with, and work on different styles and methods of communicating to them that fit in with what they would most resonate with. And then lastly, think about adaptability. So push yourself to find different new challenging experiences that need that level of flexibility. If you go around and work on some of the stuff that I've just suggested, you'll have to be adaptable because you're going to be stretching yourself and going and doing different things you haven't done before. But the more adaptable you are, the more you're able to roll with the punches. That is a key soft skill that will really stand you in good stead, because in this world of safety, things are always thrown at us that we weren't expecting. Sadly, bad things do happen, accidents do happen, injuries do happen, and so we have to be able to roll with the punches, as it were, and adapt and deal with whatever situation is thrown at us. So there's a few thoughts for you on why, what, and how. And I'd love to now open this up, as always, to your thoughts. So are soft skills as important as I've suggested here? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Why not? Which of the soft skills are the most important? And perhaps you might have a different perspective than what I've shared here today. And by the way, what you need to do here is go to reactions and raise your hand, and then I'll call you up. So I'm looking for who's going to be hot on raising their hand. What have you done? So share your journey, share your experience. What have you done around some of these things to develop these skills and to hone these skills? A couple of people have asked about sharing the presentation. Yeah. This will get put out on my YouTube. Don't worry. It'll be put on YouTube. And Russ has mentioned Safety News YouTube channel, which I can recommend as well. Lastly, have you got any resources or insights that you could share for everyone else that would benefit the other people involved in today's session? So what have you got to help everyone else following kind of me having given you my thoughts? So I can see that Rachel has her hand up. So Rachel, I'm going to stop sharing. Why don't you unmute yourself and say hello? If you're there. Are you there, Rachel? You've got your hand up. If not, then I'm going to have to pick on Simon, because Simon is going to be able to talk about a soft skill, which I didn't talk about today. Go on, Simon.
Good afternoon.
Are you there, Rachel?
Afternoon. Rachel on the line. Actually, like you asked, soft skills are very, very important, and it actually goes a long way When I first came to where I was working, I had issues blending with technicians because they wouldn't let you lead them as a female. But what I did was I just played calm, and I found out that there are some people that understand that leadership is not all about gender. So what I did was I flowed with those people first. And after a while, I was able to gain ground to a point. But still, most of them had this male chauvinist attitude. And some still have it till today, but notwithstanding, I'm able to blend to a point today. And I give God the glory. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. That's a great story to hear, because I suspect that kind of scenario is something that other people would have struggled with in the past as well. And I think, the way that you dealt with that by, being proactive and trying to get to know people and show empathy and use those soft skills is very, very commendable. So hopefully that's a good lesson for others to take. Who would like to join in and give us some thoughts on soft skills? Simon.
Oh yeah, you all right?
I'm well. Yeah, you?
Nice to see you.
I knew you'd have plenty to say on this.
Big mouth. Yes. Hello, everyone. As I said, it is all about relationships. All this is certainly how I see it, and undoing maybe the idea that people have of you even before you've opened your mouth. There's maybe a preconceived idea about what you're going to be like as a person because of the job role or the job title that you have. So it is all about sort of building those relationships as quick as you can. Maybe use a bit of yourself, a bit of personality goes a long way. Build those relationships early and quickly and at every level. That's what I look to do. And, it really helps. People really are gonna have a preconceived idea about you. Get used to that, or get that in your mind, and then try and undo that. Not easy, but that's how I'd go about it.
Tell us a bit about your book as well.
Well, that's good of you. That's good of you to mention it. Good of you to bring it up. As you know, I've written a couple of books about this already. They're called The Safety Salesman. So the first one came out last year. It was called Shoot from the Lip. The next one's come out last week. It's called Big Mouth Writes Again. Read into that what you will. They're my sort of ideas and my sort of crazy brain on how to sort of go about this. And feel free to have a look at them. But I think, on a serious note, it is all about just injecting a bit of personality into it, and maybe helping people out, giving people some solutions, not just problems. When I first started in safety, obviously I've come from a different background in policing. It's got a bit of a negative connotation to it, and people think you're going to got a negative person, or you're going to find problems. So try and undo that and sort of seek solutions for people and just be nice.
It's always good to be nice. And I think that point about solutions is really important, because you're right that the kind of stereotype of a safety person or a safety function is a blocker, isn't it, rather than as an enabler. And actually, we need to turn that on its head and be an enabler to the business, and be seen as a positive influence and something that is going to help the business to achieve its core objectives, rather than something that's going to hold the organization back from doing that. So yeah, no, great, thanks, Simon. And Simon was on my podcast last year, I think it was, about his first book. So if you want to listen to one of the old episodes, then you can listen to Simon and I having a bit of banter about selling safety as well.
And I've realised, I'm actually wearing the same hoodie as I was that day as well. So I have actually got more than one set of clothes.
We'll believe you. Thousands wouldn't, but we will believe you. Thanks a lot, Simon.
Nice.
Lionel, how are you doing today? Are you there, Lionel? You've got your hand up. I can see you're unmuted, but I can't hear you. Perhaps your microphone isn't working. I'll tell you what, I'll pop you on mute. Stuart, do you want to come in? How are you doing?
Hi, Christian. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm well. Yeah, yourself?
Yeah, not bad. I hope I'm in your recent thing, in your clear out on LinkedIn. Hopefully one or two of us on here are staying within your circle.
Oh, you're all within my circle. Don't worry. Basically, for those that don't know, I did a bit of a culling of people that I'm following on LinkedIn. So I'm still connected with everybody that I was connected with before. But I was finding that I was getting my sort of LinkedIn feed. So everyone on here's LinkedIn feed is probably dominated by me. So I apologize for that. But my feed was being dominated by people who were doing stuff that wasn't really that relevant or interesting to me. And I thought, well, the only way to really solve this is to try and have a big cull and then kind of rebuild it from the ground up. So anybody on this call, I would be very happy to continue to follow and engage with, and tag me in your posts, and let's tag each other in your posts, and let's get the conversation going.
And that leads on to another thing, because we talk about leadership, but very rarely talk about followership. And followership is just as important, and knowing who you're following and what you feed in your mind is coming out in all your conversations. So, whatever you're eating goes into your body. It's the same way as digesting social media content and books. They all go into what make you and your personality. So feed yourself the right things. And from what Simon said, being nice, it's a bit of a subjective term, being nice, isn't it? Because doesn't always get you the results you want being nice. Sometimes you have to be firm. Sometimes you have to be, authoritative, and you have to do authoritative nicely. It's a bit of a paradox, whatever it is. One thing I would say you could be is personable. I've been working on this word personable for a long time, and it is a wide band what personable is. So for me, getting in front of people, I'm looking for everything. I'm trying to keep a lid on my biases, keep a lid on my judgments, keep a very, very open mind and certainly open ears. But you're looking for anything that's going to give you a chance to influence, because influence doesn't just, you don't just pick it like an apple off a tree and say, I'm going to throw this apple at somebody and I'm going to influence them. It doesn't work that way. It's a massive body of work, and believe me, I've read nearly every book on it, and I've still got thousands to go. So I'll never get to the end of influence. But what I'm looking for is the little thing that's going to give me that leverage into their psyche, their behavior, whatever it is. Sometimes it's a case of you'll identify what football team they or sport even that they like. I always look out for, are they left or right-handed? Because when I'm putting paperwork in front of them, I always present it to a left or a right-hander. And it's surprising what difference that makes, even on a subconscious level. They don't realize, but you've made it easy for them to do that. And I think that's another big part of being personable, is making life easy for the person that you're trying to influence. And make it social, make it that everybody's involved. Massive thing that David Kant put on there, we could talk about that actual post all day about how to do it. For me, like Simon said, nice is subjective, but personable is definitely one thing. Just going off on another thing that has been really good that's come to me recently is gravitas. So gravitas is another word that encompasses a lot of things. It's not being knowledgeable, keeping a lid on your emotions, talking in a certain way that people want to listen to you. You do it in spadefuls, Christian, which is why you're so successful with these. But gravitas is something you, as a safety professional, if we worked on gravitas, you'd have a lot more success. So go and look into that, because I think that's another word that doesn't get used often enough. And that's me. Thanks,
Stuart. That's covered a lot of ground there. Influence is it's a topic I'm really interested in, because I think that it's the only way to to get people to do things differently and better, you have to be able to influence them. And I agree that it's a massive, massive subject. What I would add to what you said there is that, to me, and this is a negative phrase, so I don't mean it that way, but it's kind of just analogous, is death by 1,000 cuts. So in other words, you don't influence people by, one big bold gesture or one big health and safety campaign on a particular topic and feel as if, we want to focus on manual handling, so we're going to do a month of manual handling, and then we've boxed that one off and we can move on to the next thing. That's not how it works. You need to be putting the message in front of people again and again and again. So think of election campaigns. We definitely don't want to be talking about the Brexit debate on this call, but get Brexit done was a very clear message, and it was just put out there again and again and again and again and again. If they just said that, the Conservative Party just said that once and then forgot about it, it wouldn't have had any impact. So definitely prolific beats perfect when it comes to influence. If you want to add a book to your list, I can highly recommend a book called Become a Key Person of Influence by an author called Daniel Priestley. I've worked with him actually, and that's about how to sort of position yourself as the sort of go-to person in your area. So relevant to the conversation we're having today. It's not about safety, but that's got some very good thoughts in it for sure. Lionel, you said your mic now is working. So do you want to join us? Hopefully it's working now. No, seems like it's still not working. I'm sorry. Mark, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's just to pick up on hello everybody, first and foremost. It's just to pick up on a couple of things you guys were saying, really, in terms of, being nice and gravitas and all those types of things. For me personally, it's all about just being authentic, and it's about being yourself. I think it's quite easy to spot sometimes, especially if you work in the kind of the public speaking arena, and you hear a lot of people talk about subjects who claim to be experts in this and that and whatever it may be. And they kind of sometimes fuddle through things, and they take questions and they don't answer them in an authentic way. Because if you don't know the answer to something, you say, well, I don't know the answer. If you do know the answer, then you can give your technical knowledge. I've got a cat destroying my room at the minute, if you notice that.
Careful, it might set my two cats off.
So to me, it's about that kind of authenticity. And, change is a personal thing, and people generally change when they're ready to change. We can try and influence that kind of expedite that process. But if they can to learn to know you a little bit better, they know exactly where you're coming from, then you start to look at this area of trust, and trust can have a huge bearing on, on how we influence people, which is obviously a key, component of a leadership skill. So for me, it was just really picking up on what, Simon and Stuart was saying, really, in terms of, that kind of gravitas and that nice thing, just about being authentic. And I think you can spot it sometimes. You can spot when people are really being, I think whether that's just the experience that you have over the years of working in the industry or getting to know people on a personal level, but you can generally spot sometimes when people are not being as authentic as they could be, or should be rather. So that's just really what I wanted to add to that. And also, I guess, in terms of some of the things that you covered so far, I think one of all these skills you talk about are really important, all of them. It goes without a doubt. Not one doesn't, transcend the other, or trump the other. But to me, active listening is definitely a key component. And I think if you can, as a
sorry,
human being,
what was that? Sorry, I missed that. I'm joking. I'm joking.
If you can cultivate that skill of being curious, just being curious when somebody's in a conversation, just try and clear your mind. Try not to make judgment, because we can't help it. We do it naturally. You know, it's just the way that we're built as human beings, I'm afraid. And just try and listen to the person, see what piques your interest, and follow that course of conversation through. And I think that demonstrates to the other person that, but certainly if you're asking questions about what they've just spoken about, that you are listening to what they're talking about, you know. And there's many examples. I always use kids, well, my kids as an example for many things, you know, how much active listening goes on when you're talking to kids or they're talking to you. So it's no different to anybody from 8 to 80, I suppose. So that was my 2 pennies worth, and a cat to throw in for the, oh, go on.
Thank you.
You got bored.
Thank you, Mark. Stuart, you put your hand back up again, so I don't know if you wanted to come back in on that.
Yeah, only because I didn't see many hands up there, so I was quite happy to contribute a second time if you're happy with that. Bang on, Mark. Authenticity is exactly. I mean, the word gravitas, which I threw in there, is because I've just read Catherine Goyder's book called Gravitas, which actually goes into a lot more detail on what it is, and it does mean authenticity underneath it. Also, it's the interpretation of gravitas. One thing that we've not mentioned, or a word, call it a whole field, that hasn't cropped up in this conversation, is negotiation skills, which you would you class them as hard or soft skills? I think there's an element of soft skill there. I mean, I've always
say so.
Yeah, I've always thought, how do you interpret a hard skill from a soft skill? And I've always tried to identify what that was. And I did a bit of a research into it, and I thought, is a hard skill, if a soft skill is something that you can be trained how to do in a college or a university or something, then is it really a soft skill? As opposed to soft skills, which are part of your, like empathy. You wouldn't go away and do a training course in empathy. You could, but it wouldn't necessarily make you empathetic. Some of the skills, the soft skills, are coming from within you. They're intrinsic, and you have to work on them, like cutting out any judgments, any biases, any cognitive distortions that you have. You've got to work on them from within. You can't.
And in some ways, they're hard to quantify as well, I guess, is another way of thinking about it, because you can't quantify how much empathy you've got.
You're right. You can't go on a training course. Well, is there a training course for it? Possibly there's some awareness on it, but it doesn't actually train you as if you were going doing an abrasive wheels course and you come out with it and you know how to change a wheel. It's soft, isn't it? And that's when I was trying to get the interpretation of soft. And is soft. Are some soft skills hard skills? That's the question.
I like what Jay just said in the chat: soft skills or life skills. Yeah, that's a good one. Right, come on, Lionel. 3rd time's a charm.
I hope
there
so.
we go. How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. I had to drop out and then come back in. I'm just struggling. I was struggling with the browser, but I'm here now. Thank you very much for hosting the space, and I really appreciate this, Christian, allowing me to give my 2 pence on the subject. So for me, I think for the questions that you raised is what have I found useful in my journey as a safety professional is that we need to build trust, and trust is the currency, I would say, for any sort of successful safety project that you want to implement. So without trust, I think you are probably, you've got no chance of achieving any sort of progress within the safety field. I think how I usually approach situations, and how I've approached situations in the past, is by ensuring that I always take the first few weeks of my time in a role to know the people. What do you care about? So I go out on the field and I'm having those conversations about what do you care about? What's more important to you? And once you know what they care about, you then have an opportunity to speak to the guys and say, look, we want to make sure that you get home every day, because you're coming from a place of knowledge, whether it's dogs, whether it's hobbies, whether it's it's their partners, and things like this. So I think for me, it's an understanding of what people care about first, and understanding what they want to achieve, and getting that sort of buy-in, and then you use the trust that you gain to build these relationships, whereby you are sitting down with people and you are actually listening. You are seen to be listening, and you respond as well when they raise issues with you. We have an issue where people report a lot of incidences and near misses, and nothing is ever done. What then in turn that does is that people stop reporting and recording them, because they know you're not going to do anything about it. And I think it's a struggle to get people to understand that when they raise something, even if it's nothing, the response is nothing, or we can't do anything about it at the moment, just going back and saying, look, at the moment, this is the priority. We are looking at getting that. Whenever we get a chance, we will get to look at it, and your feedback. Feedback is something that we lack, because we're asking people, tell us what you need, and yet we're not, feeding back to say, okay, this is not okay because of A, B, C, and D, or can we think of a different way of approaching this situation? And I think that is something that I've picked up, yeah, I think that's my two piece and 2 pence on the subject. And thanks for giving me the opportunity to say that.
Thank you. Well, it was worth the wait. So so I appreciate that. And it's interesting that you've brought up trust, and we've kind of talked actually about 3 things that when you're ever thinking about marketing, you talk about these 3 things, which is know, like, and trust. And so you need to be known. And how can you be known? By, as we say, being prolific and getting your messaging out there and making the effort. You need to be liked. And I always think that people get this wrong. So the way that that Stuart said it is the best way, which is that it doesn't really matter if people like you, that they need to think that you like them. That's the most important thing. And then that helps to build the trust. And then that's when you can really get stuff done. So it's good that we've managed to bring all 3 of those things out. Dave, I see you've got your hand up. I'm going to call you in a second. I just want to mention the next roundtable in 2 weeks' time. So we're going to have a bit of a slight change in the formatting, and I'm going to do a bit of experimenting of bringing on a sort of co-host and doing a bit more of a fireside chat, a bit like I do on the podcast with a few guests. So the first one I've got lined up is Karen, and we're going to talk about how to make people your biggest safety asset. So join us for that on Wednesday, the 22nd of February at 12:30. So Dave, do you want to, you look, so you've stepped into the garden and... yeah,
I'm in Saudi, as you know. I'm in Saudi Arabia at the moment. And as you know, as a teacher, a health and safety teacher, and someone who's very, doing Irish literacy, communication, and as you're saying, the soft skills or life skills are very important. But I always find that working with people in different organizations, it's so important to try and create a culture of communication. And like you say, soft skills, it's also empowering people, and social skills and things like that. And quite often that's left out, especially for the most vulnerable and at risk. So for managers, there's often there'll be a top-down communication strategy. So for managers, I think the theme of your talk today is fantastic, especially now. People are going to digital learning, digital training, and it's becoming more and more depersonalized, I find, health and safety, and there needs to be a lot more attention given to communication skills as a key concept, because all the statistics that I read, they're always saying about, communication, poor communications is a root causal factor in so many OSH incidents and different things like that. So I think communication, and even having a conversation about communications is a very good thing. And as I say, from a teacher's point of view, preparing young people for the workplace, to managers, I'd say it's something that really needs to be focused on. Young people don't want to talk, and there still is that culture of a top-down communications, and people need to be empowered and feel that they can communicate, and that that culture needs to be created, that communication's good.
Yeah, definitely agree with you there, Dave. Thank you very much. And I was thinking, yeah, it looked like a bit warmer where you are than where I am today, so that makes perfect sense. It's pretty cold in London today.
Yeah.
Can I just add on what Dave has stated there in terms of top-down approach? And I think it's the struggle that the industry has had in terms of how people actually get involved. If you look at it, people at the sharp end of the risk usually have little say in how things work within the workplace, and yet they're the expert risk assessors who are always giving us, or who we need to be tapping into to try and ask them the questions, how do we get this to be safer? Because they're managing risk day in, day out. So they are the risk experts. We just need to support them and enable them to bring us the solutions we need to be implemented within the workplace. And bottom up is how I always approach my risk assessments. That way it also gives accountability to the guys, because if they have created a procedure, they are most likely to follow it. If they haven't been involved in the procedures, then we might as well have an archive worth of procedures that nobody ever follows, because it's usually top down, never bottom up, and never involvement and accountability with those who are managing and dealing with that risk day in, day out, and who are the experts we should be tapping into. So I think that is a very important message that you've shared there, Dave, and I really appreciate that, because I was just thinking, this is what we always talk about. When I go to the guys, I said, show me how you do the work. Okay, and then we assess from there. So what do you think about this? And then we have a discussion then, and it's two-way. It's not going to be one directional, because most of the time it's, you are going to do this way, never how do you think we can do this safely. So if we approached it in a different way, we're most likely to get the result that we need, because we create safer environments where people are actually going to follow what they said, because they've put their names to say that they've created these procedures and processes as well. So yeah, participation and accountability is very important. Thank you.
Spot on. And you've done a great job there doing a segue into the next roundtable discussion, where we're talking about making people your biggest safety asset. So perhaps I have to hire you as my co-host, Lionel, for all of these events going forward. You've managed to wrap that up and pull that together nicely. Well, look, thank you everybody for joining today. Been a really good session. Talking about some stuff that I think is really important, and hopefully you've got some fresh perspectives on soft skills, the importance of them, and some ideas on some of the actions you can take to go away and try to improve upon that. And with some of the insights that have been shared by the panelists, an idea of kind of some of the great outcomes you can achieve, and therefore why it's important to do this. So yes, we need to have our technical skills, we need to have that functionality in place, but actually the way that we can influence, the way that we can be known, be liked, be trusted, and get stuff done is by working on these soft skills. So thanks for joining today. Hope you found it useful. Let's carry on the chat on social media. As I say, tag me in on LinkedIn and make sure I'm getting involved in what you're doing. And look forward to seeing you all in a couple of weeks for the next session with Karen.
Thanks for joining us on the Safety and Risk Success podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please hit follow and do share on social media. Does anyone you know spring to mind as a great guest, even yourself? If so, please contact us on podcast@slipsafety.co.uk. See you next week for another episode.